Namaste ji.
Good evening. Namaskar.
Oh, namaskar,
So
sir.
nice to see you.
वैसे कपिल जी के
नमस्कार जी।
नमस्कार।
नमस्कार।
बड़ा अच्छा लगा। उन्होंने श्रीकला जी ने भेजा था कि आप लोग बोलने वाले, मैंने कहा टाइम निकालना ही पड़ेगा मुझे।
बहुत अच्छे, बहुत
अरे,
अच्छे।
सुनने के लिए।
That's kind of you.
So nice to see you.
JNU meet.
Yeah, it's a JNU
It's
meet
JNU.
for us. Yeah.
Chaliye, Ramya, let us start.
Yes.
Sarvebhyo Namo Namaha. I welcome all of you on this auspicious occasion of Sri Śaṅkara Jayanti celebrations organized by the International School of Sri Śaṅkaracharya Studies. This year, for the Śaṅkara Jayanti celebrations, the school is privileged to have two celebrities in ontological studies to share their thoughts with us. The Sri Śaṅkara Jayanti Varshika Prabhashanam will be delivered by Professor Shashi Prabha Kumar, Chairperson, Indian Institute of Advanced Studies, Shimla. The session will be chaired by none other than Professor Kapil Kapoor, one of the leading figures in Indian philosophical studies at the global level. We begin with the Sri Śaṅkara Stuti sung by Dr. Preeti and Professor Shrikala Nair.
Shruti Smriti Puran.
It's not coming clearly.
कुछ हो रहा है रम्या
हाँ,
Ramya, put it off. Let me try. I don't know how to. Ramya, can you hear me, dear?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Let me try. Was it audible?
No, ma'am.
No. Okay. All right. Preeti is here? No. All right. All right, then I'll sing direct. Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavad Śaṅkaram Lokaśaṅkaram Viditakhila Shastra Sudhajaladhe Mahidopaniषदधिकाधनिधि हृदये कुले विमलं चरणं भव शङ्करदेशिक मे शरणं भव शङ्कर देशिक मे शरणं भव शङ्कर देशिक मे शरणं. Thank you. Ramya, go ahead.
Thank you, ma'am. Now, may I invite Professor Shrikala Nair, Director, International School for Sri Śaṅkaracharya Studies, for the welcome address.
Start with another invocation, which is routine to me. Kalyanam अन्नदाताय आमितफलदायिने श्रीमद् वेङ्कटनाथाय श्रीनिवासाय ते नमः। श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः। नमस्सभायै सभापतिभ्यश्च श्री शंकर जयंती प्रभाषण कार्यक्रमेऽस्मिन् भागं स्वीकर्तुमागतेभ्यः सर्वेभ्यः अन्ताराष्ट्र पठन केन्द्रस्य कृते स्वागतं व्याहरामि। Welcome to all distinguished guests who have assembled online to tribute Acharya Śaṅkara on the holy occasion of Sri Śaṅkara Jayanti. International School of Sri Śaṅkaracharya Studies by now has made its mark and its presence felt in the field of global Indological studies by organizing several programs such as monthly international lecture program, textual workshops. Recently, we have organized one on Dashashloki, publications, translation projects. Most importantly, Sri Śaṅkara Monthly Study Circle, which is, the Moola Grantha Pataha Vyakhyaja, which is our flagship program. And also projects we have with the Central University of Sanskrit, conduct of Vidwat Sabhas. Recently, we have organized a Vidwat Sabha along with Tirupati University. Short-term courses to disseminate Vedanta philosophy, Sanskrita Vijnana Paricaya, a program that we title, which is a refresher course for school teachers and young researchers in Sanskrit philosophical tradition, and also International Young Scholars Seminar Competition, which we have organized last month, and also monthly lecture programs organized by the Global Forum for Young Philosophers, which is a youth wing of this school. Friends, this evening we are fortunate to have two luminaries in the galaxy of Sanskrit philosophical tradition to speak to us. Professor Kapil Kapoor needs no introduction to the academia, either in India or abroad. His contributions to the academic world is immense. I have no clue whether I'll be able to complete all of his achievements. He was a professor of English and concurrent professor Sanskrit JNU. He is also a member of PM's National 75th Year Commemoration Committee, member of the Executive Council, Nehru Memorial Museum and Library, and member of the High-Level Committee, IKS Ministry of Education. He is also former chairman of Indian Institute of Advanced Studies, Shimla, member IHRC, Editorial Committee, National Archives, member MHRD Language Export Committee, and member India Policy Foundation. He is also former Chancellor of Mahatma Gandhi International Hindi University, Wardha. He was a visiting professor of Irish Academy of Cultural Heritages and University of Ulster, UK during 2005-2009, and former Pro-Vice Chancellor of JNU. Among his literary contributions, he serves as editor-in-chief for the 11 volumes of the Encyclopedia of Hinduism, published in 2012, which is very popular. And was also as chief editor of Sahitya Akademi Encyclopedia of Indian Poetics are significant. On behalf of International School for Sri Śaṅkaracharya Studies, it's my great pleasure and privilege to welcome Professor Kapil Kapoor to this evening's program. Today, Sri Śaṅkara Jayanti Varshika Prabhashanam will be delivered by Professor Shashi Prabha Kumar. Again, Professor Kumar is a very well-known figure among Sanskrit academia, particularly. She is a renowned Sanskrit scholar whose contributions are recognized by the global academic community. Currently, she works as the chairperson of IIS Shimla, and she also holds positions such as Distinguished Fellow Honorary of the Vivekananda International Foundation, New Delhi, and as the Dean of Sri Śaṅkaracharya Sanskrit Mahavidyalaya, Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan, New Delhi. That's a happy coincidence. And previously, she held positions like the Vice Chancellor of Sanchi University of the Buddhist Indic Studies, Professor and Chairperson, Center for Sanskrit Studies, JNU, Vice Chairperson of Delhi Sanskrit Academy, etc. Among many honors and awards that she has received, there's a big, huge list of which I have picked out, a handful of them. Some of them are the Vishishta Puraskar Uttar Pradesh Sanskrit Samsthan, Lucknow 2019, Sanskrit Shri conferred by Akhil Bharatiya Sanskrit Sahitya Sammelana, New Delhi 2019, Vidyasagar Ubadhi by Mandakini Sanskrit Vidya Vidut Parishad, New Delhi 2018, and Pandit Ganga Prasad Ubadhyaya Puraskar, Allahabad 2017. Again, on behalf of International School of Sri Śaṅkara Studies, I extend a very, very warm welcome to Madam Shashi Kumar. We have been together on several platforms, and I have seen such a wonderful scholar in her, who dives deep into the topic in the very second sentence that she speaks. She has always been a wonder. Thank you, Madam, for your kind consent to join with us. Today, she is going to speak to us on Śaṅkaram, Lokaśaṅkara. Śaṅkara, Lokaśaṅkara is that we all use. Śaṅkara as the one who brings Śaṅkara, the fortune and well-being to the whole of the humanity, probing on the ethical aspects of Advaita Vedanta. Now, friends, it's very easy to speak on the ontological contributions of Advaita, but very hard and challenging, rather, to speak on the ethical contributions of Advaita. To that extent, some would say that what are the ethical contributions of Advaita Vedanta? As Śaṅkara or anybody of his descendants have ever spoken on ethics? One thing that we have forgotten probably is that ethics, we understand the notion of ethics in terms of the West, or whatever the West has told us, normative ethics. And whereas in India, in Indian philosophical tradition, metaphysics has been the first philosophy ever. And therefore, the ontological principles give dictates, and these dictates have been followed in the form of ethics. So, to my mind, I'm sure she would supplement or speak at length about it. Ontology, the metaphysics is the ethics, and there is overlapping of ethics and ontology and aesthetics in Indian philosophy. As Tagore has said that Indian disciplines never survived in nuclear families. They have always flourished in the joint family. As I'm reminded of what my master professor R. Balasubramanian, a renowned Advaitin, speaks. He used to quote from Sureshwaracharya. I've grown up listening to him, where he says, Sureshwara says towards the close, I think, Buddhadvaita sadattosya yadheshta acharanam yati shunam tatvadrasham jaiva ko bhedo shiti bhakshane. If a sinful action doesn't, if you understand that if a sinful action doesn't touch a man of wisdom, then what is the difference between a dog and a man? And tasmanna jayate asma, that's not the case, because adharma jayate jnanam yadheshta acharanam tadaha dharmagarye gadham tat syat. One who is doing the most meritorious activity for a Jivan Mukta, how can there be the very possibility of sin? Yatra dharmo vineshyate, where he doesn't even think of doing even dharma. For him, neither dharma or adharma is immaterial. For such a person, where is the very possibility of committing sin? And then I'll just conclude by quoting Sureshwara's beautiful analogy. He says, Kuta Shangvalata tasya yasyagnim kotare taroho. That taru which has in his kotara, in his halos, Agni, that taru, that vriksha can never have what is called the green foliages. Similar is the case with the Jivan Mukta, who has the fire of knowledge in him. How can he ever indulge in what is called the Chitta Vyayama? So, when raga, which is the linga of the abodha or the ignorance, such activities can never be thought of with regard to the Jivan Mukta. So this is what has been categorically asserted by Sureshwaracharya in his Naishkarma Siddhi. This is how I have grown, listening to the ethical side. If you call it ethics, this is ethics. If you want to call it ontology, well, this is ontology. As I have said that you have grown up not distinguishing these disciplines. And my masters have always told me that distinguishing these disciplines as, individual engagements should be considered as a sin. And that is how I have grown up. I leave it to Professor Shashi Prabha to, scholarly deal with the matter. I once again welcome. I see great academics and the leading scholars in Indian philosophy. We have Professor Sudhirji is here, former Vice Chancellor of JNU, and several other scholars. Anilji, I can see Anilji. I can see Professor Shukla. I see several others. I welcome one and all to this great occasion. Let us tribute this great master of ours, Adi Śaṅkara, whose Jayanti we are trying to celebrate. Once again, I welcome you all to this Varshika Jayanti lecture program, and thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Now, may I have the pleasure to invite Professor Kapil Kapoor, former chairman, Indian Institute of Advanced Studies, Shimla, for the presidential address. Sir, please unmute your mic.
Mute yourself, sir.
सबको मेरा नमस्कार. I am very grateful to Shri Kalaji for giving me a chance to be in Kalari, although in a virtual mode, and to be with my friends and people whom I have known for years, and particularly with Shashiji, who is, as I said, she is my younger sister. And it was such a delight when you called me and when you told me that she's a very good scholar, and I'm sure we're going to hear very nice, profound things from her. I am, as I said, I am an infiltrator into this domain, basically because I have moved into various things, having been teaching and reading for 62 years now. It's quite natural that one begins to wander. It's an act of courage for anyone to talk about, Adi Śaṅkara in whatever context. Today, of course, it is in the context of Advaita that we want to talk about. But it's an act of courage for anybody, because Śaṅkara is one of the few greatest human minds. And we require a high level of training and intelligence and study to be able even to understand up to a superficial level, not even the deep level, what Śaṅkara has to say about so many things in his Tikas on Upanishads, on Brahma Sutra, his Bhashya, on Gita Bhashya, and his great poetry, Saundarya Lahari and Bhaj Govindam, his grand combination of abstract philosophy with bhakti, in his Bhaj Govindam. So we have here a mind which in fact broke through the separate categories that had evolved in the tradition. For example, Jnana, Karma, and Bhakti. In his own life and in his work, he transcended this trichotomy. You see, Jnana, Karma, and Bhakti. And I remember that in his Gita Bhashya, in the second chapter, commentary in the second chapter, Tika Gita Bhashya, there is a tremendous line by Śaṅkara, because, by the time Bhagavad Gita was composed, the division between with the Upanishads, dharma consisted in jnana. With Mahatma Buddha, dharma consisted in karma. other directed karma. And with the Puranas, the dharma consisted in bhakti. So we have three protagonists: Nachiketa, asking fundamental questions, and we have Bodhisattva, doing deeds for Lokaśaṅkara, welfare of others, and we have Hanuman, the great bhakta, one who was master of 9 schools of grammar, and who was so strong that he brought Ram and Lakshman from the Patal, brought them on his shoulders, who told Sita ji that he would have turned Lanka upside down and taken her back, but it will not be in the grandeur of Lord Rama that I should take you. In that commentary, you see, when I'm saying that by the time of Bhagavad Gita, there was a trichotomy, Jnana Karam Bhakti. And Adi Shankara says, Jnana Yukt Karam hi Bhakti hai. That's how he, sort of transcended. There is it occurred to me that because he in his own work, he has extended the Vedanta, rather, made it, codified the Advaita. He codified it, although the Ekatamta of Vedanta was achieved by Badarayana, Vedvyasa, Bhagavan Vedvyasa in his Brahma Sutras. But the codification of the Advaita, which is implicit in Brahma Sutras, is done by Adi Shankara in his commentaries on various Upanishads. He did that at the same time, he was a great bhakta. He was an abstract philosopher and also a bhakta. Jnana, pure jnana, at the same time bhakti. Bhakti is the most difficult of the 3 margas, most difficult. Now, there are at least 5 Advaitas in the main tradition. We have Śaṅkara, we have Ramanuj, we have Madhava, and we have Nimbarka, and we have Vallabha. And but the Srot, the Gomukh of this Advaita, codified Advaita, is Adi Shankara. And what is Advaita? I mean, you all know more about these things than I do. You have read all the texts. What is the issue? What is the issue that is apprehended by the Advaita system, and what Śaṅkara is addressing? The issue is the separateness of reality that we see and experience. A discontinuous, distinct, separate Vastu Jagat. Everything is different. So we see so many things. Multiplicity. The foundational bheda, difference that we cognize in what we observe, what we experience. But is that the true nature? Is that the true nature of this Brahmanda or Srishti or Jagat? The Srishti, the Brahmanda, both would be, I think, will take as, when we are talking about Advaita, we have 4 or 5 core categories to think of: Brahma, then Brahmanda or Srishti, then Jagat, and then Jiva. So Brahma, Brahmanda, Jagat, and Jiva. The interrelationship and the nature of these. These are the these are the counters with which the Advaita thought plays. जैसे चेस के होते हैं ना counters, तो ये 4 counters हैं जिसके साथ Advaita thought plays. And the issue is the relationship between them, the relationship between the 3 counters and Brahma, the nature of the whole thing, the nature of this Srishti. Is it Ghat-Pat Bhed, Bhedatmak? Is it Ghat-Pat Bhedatmak? Or is there a thread which, or a river which runs through it all? Or there is a thread which runs through it all? This question ultimately is a question of nature of this creation, Srishti. जो हम देखते हैं, experience करते हैं, कि इसका क्या, इसकी प्रकृति क्या है? And most civilizations have asked this question and they have tried to answer it in their own way. For example, there are, of the 2 knowledge cultures of the world, there are only 2 knowledge cultures in the world. The Abrahamic, which one of my friends from Sagar very nicely said, Abrahamic, and the Brahmic or Vedic. So there are 2 knowledge cultures, Abrahamic and Vedic. Now the Abrahamic knowledge culture, which is theocentric, one God, Ek Ishwarvadi, that God is Nirakar but not Nirgun. That is the logical fault line, which is why the 3 systems, Judaism, Christianity and Islam, which are Ek Ishwarvadi, one God, formless, they fight with each other because the God is formless but not attributeless. So there's Spinoza saying that Hebraic God is an angry God. But they have answered this question of creation and some power. So for the God, their God with a capital G is the creator, and he's outside the creation. He's outside the creation. He creates, and then he watches. But he's outside the creation. And the point that if it is created, then it is created at a particular point of time. It is created in a particular way. And if it has come into being, then according to our way of thinking, it shall also end. But what is the Vedanta or the Advaita? Here the concept of Brahman underlying all and every vastu, Brahman. अब ये Brahman, we all know Vedanta, Brahma Sutro में अथा तो Brahma Jigyasa. But if we look at the 6 darshanas, we can understand how this category was reached and what a powerful category it is. See, the Vaisheshika has 24 or 23 or 24 tattvas. Sankhya, divides the tattvas into 2, Purush and Prakriti. So the ontological given, the tattva, the a priori, those that which exist, the ontological a priori tattvas, they are divided by Sankhya into 2, Purush and Prakriti. They are classified. And that is, Prakriti is matter and Purush is energy. The energy principle, the matter principle and the energy principle. And then our great Indian minds, our Rishi, maybe Vedvyas, maybe somebody else must have started, the tradition must have started earlier. They felt that energy and matter are not separate. Energy is immanent in matter. And that principle of energized matter is Brahman. Brahman is the energized matter. So the whole universe, Brahmanda, is nothing but energized matter. Energized matter. जैसे लावा होता है, लावा होता है ना, जब लावा फूटता है तो लावा बहता है, और लावा जो होता है उसी में लाइफ होती है. तो the whole universe is energized matter, and in that universe forms arise and forms collapse. उस energized matter में forms arise and collapse. Shankar, in one of his examples, gives the examples of a stream. If you stand by a stream, you see the wave, the bubbles, and the froth. The wave, the bubbles, and the froth. These are forms which arise in water. Dravya mein akritiyan. Forms which arise in matter. And why? And you know, when you say, look, what a big wave, and then by the time the other person looks at it, the wave has gone back into water. The bubbles go back into water. So, I, Kapil Kapoor, took form, Akriti, Akar, in 1940. And a few years from now, I disappear. None of us sitting here were here 100 years ago. And 100 years from now, none of us will be here. So what are we? We are forms that the energized matter has taken. And the sat, the truth of this is that energy which energizes the matter. Now this is the basic answer to the question of what is the nature of this Srishti and what is the principle that underlies this. So Brahman underlies this, all this creation. ये सारा जो घटपट भेद है सारा. So the Advaita basically is a philosophy that moves from bhed to abhed, difference to non-difference, from Cartesian separateness to synthesis and transcendence of difference, and weaving all the elements in a kind of a garland or in a continuity. So the whole, there is a oneness which lies beyond what we see. So the three levels of satta, pratibhasik, vyavaharik, and paramarthik. So what we see at the level of pratibhasik is merely appearance. But in vyavaharik, we have this jagat in which something is priya, something is apriya, something is good, something is not good, but it is not vastvik. It is not, its essence is not vastvik sat. The vastvik sat is only paramarthik. And that paramarthik sat is provided by the sangya we have, the Brahman. Now the question is, well, I will not go into, because the time I know I have only about 15 minutes or so. Brahman, there is so much. Prashna Upanishad, Advaita. See, it is Advaita. The most important, Anirvachaniya and all that. But then Advaita, it is one. It's one. Now this one is fairly close to the Abrahamic one, the one God. But there is a radical difference. That God is outside the creation, but Brahman permeates the creation, is inside the creation. The analogy given is that of a मकड़ी. मकड़ी को शशि जी अंग्रेजी में क्या कहते हैं? मकड़ी क्या अंग्रेजी में क्या कहते हैं? Spider. So the analogy given, see, look at this professor of English, doesn't know what is makdi in English. And
but he knows lot of Sanskrit.
You see, अब देखिए मकड़ी जो है वो उसी में से जाला निकलता है, उसी जाले में वो रहती है और वो जाला वही समेट लेती है. The spider, the web comes from the spider, The spider is in the web and the web is absorbed in the spider. So Brahma says Srishti, Tama, बुरे अंधेरे वाली darkness, तम वाली जो अवस्था थी, उसे एक particular शक्ति, energy transforms and gives forms, आकृति और रूप देती है, जिसको हम सृष्टि कहते हैं. तो ब्रह्मन, that is why in Indian systems, everything is sacred. Everything is sacred. Plant is sacred, ant is sacred, mountain is sacred, river is sacred. Everything is sacred because Brahman is immanent in all. And in the Abrahamic system, nothing is sacred because what is sacred is outside the creation. Is outside the creation. So everything is sacred and Brahman is in this. Now, it is Advaita, it is one. Forgetting Abrahamic systems, if it is one, the one problem that Indian philosophers, thinkers, from Śaṅkara down to Guru Gobind Singh, via Guru Nanak, but Guru Gobind Singh is the latest, 16th century, nearly end of the beginning of the 17th century, end of 17th century. In his Akal Stuti, Akal, because Guru Nanak for Par Brahma used the term Akal, beyond time. Very interesting. Because from Śaṅkara right down to Guru Gobind Singh, the problem that the Indian mind has handled is, how is it if we say that Brahman is immanent in everything, आप में भी ब्रह्म है, मेरे में भी है, इनमें भी है, इनमें भी है, तो एक अनेक कैसे हो गया? How does one become many? If we say it is Advaita and we see it's everywhere, how does that become? This is a problem that philosophers have handled. Even, in a very significant way, Bhartrihari in his Brahmakand also addressed this question. But here in the Advaita, the answer in Śaṅkara, a very great, that is, you see, it's an energy principle. If we have to take certain principles, some सिद्धांत हमको मानने पड़ते हैं, जैसे कार्य कारण भाव का है, सत्कार्यवाद है, कार्य कारण भाव है, तो द्रव्य है और उसका आकृति रूप है, उसका द्रव्य का रूप है, मट्टी है और घड़ा बनता है, तो कार्य जो है वो कारण में ही निहित है. तो कारण रूप तो ब्रह्म है, और कार्य रूप ये सृष्टि जगत और घटपट सब कुछ कार्य रूप है. ये कैसे होता है? How is it? How does Brahman manifest itself in so many transient forms? This is very important because the whole world Srishti is in a flux. Even the stars we see, the star that we see tonight, maybe 500 years ago it had gone, but we still see it because it is 1,000 years away. You see? But there is a flux. There is a flux, and the Buddhists, were very keen on this principle of flux. And there is transience. When there is flux, there is transience and momentariness. The moments may be long or short, but there is momentariness. तो वो बदलता है. तो ये सारे बदलने वाले, how one which is tatastha, one which is anirvachaniya, one which is beyond everything, how does it take form? Forms like this. एक अनेक कैसे होता है? And that is where, as we all know, ब्रह्म की माया शक्ति, which has two properties. It hides, it has the power to hide something and present it in another form. You see, this is the basic. और जो आजकल हम जादू देखते हैं ना, कि वो ढक्कन खोलता है तो उसमें एक कबूतर है, वो ढक्कन बंद करता है, फिर खोलता है तो कबूतर की जगह कौवा है ना। वो वही है आक्षेप, मतलब इसको आवरण और विक्षेप, एक को छुपा के, वो माया जो है, जो शक्ति है, वो आवरण और विक्षेप की शक्ति, वो ब्रह्म की शक्ति है, ब्रह्म की इनर इनबिल्ट शक्ति है। Now this will also create problems for the thinkers, because if it is anirvachaniya, it is beyond everything, so where does his power rest? ये कहा है. Then they come up with the concept of par brahma, you know, इसके भी ऊपर ये भी हमारा कंस्ट्रक्ट है, एक माया उसकी शक्ति है, आवरण और विक्षेप है, और उससे वो डिफरेंट आकृतियां बनती हैं, डिफरेंट आकृतियां बनती हैं, आकृतियां, आकार बनते हैं, आप, मैं, ये, कमरा, दुकान, पेड़, पक्षी, पशु, है ना, लग बनते हैं। बट देन ये तो बनते हैं, बट देन ये माया की शक्ति से बनते हैं, पर पॉइंट इज कि इनकी ट्रांजिएंस जो है, ट्रांजिएंस इनकी जो, यू सी, इट इज कालबद्ध, ये जो मैनिफेस्टेशन है ये कालबद्ध है, कालबद्ध। तो कालबद्ध, देयरफॉर द ब्रह्मन टेकिंग रूप, आकृति और रूप में भेद होता है, पर आकृति और रूप टेकिंग वेरियस आकार, ब्रह्मन टेकिंग वेरियस आकार, because of, through the power of Maya, but made visible, made cognizable by Kala. And Kala is independent Shakti. It is independent of Brahman. दिक और काल जो हैं, ये pre-ontological, pre-existing, you know, they are not powers of Brahman. तो काल की शक्ति से 1940 से, कौन सा डेट दूं अपने आप को मैं शशि जी 1940 से 225-26 जो भी है, ये जो काल खंड में रूप आया, काल शक्ति से ब्रह्म का भी आकार बना। ब्रह्म इज अनअफेक्टेड, वो तो निर्बीज है ना, वो बीज रूप से वर्क करता है, पर खुद वो निर्बीज है, तो वो तो वैसे ही है, पर उसको माया की शक्ति से, यू नो, इट टेक्स so many forms. So this is very important, because Bhartrihari, in fact, it is Bhartrihari who clearly says that एक अनेक होते हैं काल शक्ति से, but it does not affect the Advaita property of Brahman. Now this is a very, in fact, if we pursue it in the terms of contemporary sciences, you know, it's very scientific. You know, you can reduce it to the Vaisheshika Parmanuvad also. Ultimately, everything is constituted by certain given elements. And if we go away from the Bhautika explanation and go to the Siddhantic principles, and not, because Parmanu se banna is a Bhautik process, but Parmanuvad is a Siddhantic principle. But if we go to Siddhantic principle in this, then Brahman is an energized energy principle that underlies all creation. अब इसके साथ ही सृष्टि में जीव जो है, वो अंतःकरण में जो चैतन्य है, वो जीव है, उसको, और जो आत्मा भी उसको कहते हैं, इसकी जीव की दो प्रॉपर्टीज हैं, एक तो 5 कोश हैं इसके, और 4 अवस्थाएं हैं, 4 अवस्थाएं हैं, पर जो शुद्ध चैतन्य है जीव का, शुद्ध चैतन्य, इट इज बियॉन्ड पंचकोश, इट इज बियॉन्ड पंचकोश, इट इज निर्लिप्त. इसलिए when we come to Guru Nanak, the questions which the analysis raised about the nature of Brahman being only one, and then having properties, then Kal being independent, then Guru Nanak gave the term Akal to Par Brahma. Akal in Ek Omkar Akal Murat, Ek Omkar उनका जो मूल मंत्र है इन जपजी साहब, उसमें उन्होंने निर्गुण ब्रह्म, जपजी साहब में is an extended manifestation on manifestation on Nirgun Brahma, and his Dakhni Omkar is an extended meditation on Sagun Brahma. And then Guru Gobind Singh Ji finally. I think I will stop here. This is very interesting. One can, sort of go on to many related issues, but I have taken more time, Shri Kalaji, and I apologize for taking more time. I tried to limit myself. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Kapoor. Now it's my honor to invite Professor Shashi Prabha Kumar for the Sri Śaṅkara Jayanti Varshika Prabhashanam on Śaṅkara, Lokaśaṅkara, an ethical perspective of Advaita philosophy. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you. Om Namah Shambhavaya cha Mayo Bhavaya cha Namah Śaṅkaraya cha Mayaskaraya cha Namah Shivaya cha Shivataraya cha. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Namah Sabhabhyah Sabhapatibhyascha. Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavat Padam Shankaram Lokaśaṅkaram. Revered chair of the session, Professor Kapil Kapoor ji, dear Professor Shri Kala Nair ji, and distinguished scholars and participants in the audience. Especially, I would like to mention Professor S.K. Sopori ji and Professor K.E. Devanathan ji. I feel myself blessed for being given an opportunity to pay my tribute to the greatest guru and sage, Adi Shankaracharya. Born in the year 788 in the Kaladi village of Kerala, he spread the light of Vedic wisdom when its flame was about to extinguish due to the fierce storm of ignorance and superstition. Sri Śaṅkara saved our Sanatana Sanskriti and propagated the eternal message of Vedas in a new garb. He was a philosopher par excellence, a true sannyasin and social activist, both at once, a sannyasin and an activist, religious reformer as well as a cultural ambassador. His head, heart, and hands were all integrated and committed to the cause of universal welfare. The echo of statements from the Upanishads and Bhagavad Gita was his true motivation, and he vowed to popularize the ideas of his ancestral heritage among the masses of this great country, Bharata. It is due to him that we could get the treasure of Vedic knowledge and have a sense of pride over our prized possession. So today I am here to pay my homage to Śaṅkara, the greatest Sanskritist, to a great scholar, to the most profound philosopher, homage to the highly revered sannyasin Parivrajaka, who took Parivrajya from the childhood itself. Yadahareva virajet, tadahareva pravrajet. He didn't go through the ashrama vyavastha. Right from the brahmacharya, he went to the Parivrajya or sannyasa. I pay my homage to the most committed author of innumerable texts in Sanskrit, the biggest consolidator of Indian religious tradition, the greatest champion of Indian intellectual tradition, the most venerable Acharya in the true sense of the term, the biggest restorer of Indian cultural practices, and the greatest devotee of feminine force in the form of mother. And I cannot resist my temptation to quote a verse from his Saundarya Lahari, in which he pays tribute to the mother Saraswati. Sudha siktaish chandropala jalalavai arghya rachana. Pradeepa jwalabhir divasa kara nirajana vidhi. Pradeepa jwalabhir divasa kara nirajana vidhi. Sudha siktaish chandropala jalalavai arghya rachana. Swakiyai rambhobhi salina nidhi sauhitya karanam. Tvadiyabhir vagbhis tava janani vacham stutiryam. It is your words, O Mother, that I am invoking you through. These words are not mine. The words are divine, and I am invoking the divine in the form of the feminine. As we all know, Advaita Vedanta of Śaṅkara is the typical and best known philosophy of India, in the words of Zimmer. And the words of A.L. Basham, he says, the standard philosophy of intellectual Hinduism to this day. F.W. Thomas has divided the history of Indian mentality into three main periods. Number one, the Vedic or Aryan period. Two, the period of maturity and organization. And three, the post-Śaṅkara or Vedanta period. So Śaṅkara is a landmark in the history of Indian philosophy. This is from the Indianism and its expression by F.W. Thomas. As we all know, Vedanta is the culmination of Indian thought. And it is said, Vedanto nama Upanishad pramanam. Vedanta is nothing but the essence of the Upanishads. Vedanam antaha Vedantaha. Literally, the term Vedanta means the end of Veda, the concluding part of Veda, the last portion of the Vedic lore, that is the Upanishads. Upanishads, as we know, are the culminating point of Vedic knowledge, the highest and the purest expression of Indian thought. These texts deal with the perennial problem of mankind, the quest for its own existence, which is universally relevant. Philosophy in India is known as darshana, and the word signifies realization or perception of the truth. Darshana stands for true knowledge, which is obtained by the seers after practicing penances and austerities. I quote Kanada, the propounder of Vaisheshika system, who says, Arsham siddha darshanam cha dharmebhyah. It's not an ordinary perception. It is arsha, siddha darshana, that is known as darshana. Accordingly, he who has the knowledge or proper perception of reality is not to be bound by actions. We ordinary mortals are bound by our actions, but one who has a true knowledge, he is not bound by the actions. He who is devoid of this perception has to suffer bondage, but he who has the direct realization or a perception of reality, he doesn't have to suffer bondage. Manu says, Samyak darshana sampannaha karmabhir na nibadhyate darshanena vihinastu sansaram pratipadyate. Today, in spite of and also on account of humanity's marvelous achievements on the material plane, we are still in search of that eternal peace, solace, and bliss, which can curtail our suffering forever and satiate our desire for immortality. The philosophy of Advaita is as relevant today as it was in the time of Maitreyi and Nachiketa, who proclaimed, Maitreyi said, yenaham namritasyam kim tena kuryam. And Nachiketa proclaims, na vittena tarpaniyo manushya. No human being can be satiated with any amount of money. Coming to Advaita philosophy, which is held to be the foremost in Indian philosophical tradition, since it propounds an inquiry into the nature of reality, which is fundamentally non-dualistic, ekameva dvitiyam. The great message of spiritual monism supplies a strong foundation for ethics, which is intuitively appealing and rationally well-grounded. According to Advaita, human beings are in search of the highest value, which was in their possession, but which has been lost. No one knows when this loss took place, and no one can proclaim when this will be regained. None of us knows. But when we are given to reflect on the existential predicament of the loss we have suffered, we come to know that it doesn't matter how we characterize this supreme value. We may call it perfection, freedom, release. We may speak of it as the good Shreyas, or even liberation or Nishreyas, but what we have lost can be regained as a result of a change in our vision. The self, which is real and which is the highest value, is eternal. It is only due to our own ignorance that we think we have lost it. Although we have not lost it and we are not going to gain anything at the highest transcendental level, but that is how we feel. What is needed for regaining the condition which is supposed to be lost is knowledge or vidya. And this knowledge, vision, according to Advaita, is a striking and optimistic note, and this can be attained in this life itself. And I quote from the Upanishads, Mundaka says, Tame vaikam janatha anya vacho vimunchatha. Leave everything else and just try to know that ultimate reality. Tame vaikam janatha anya vacho vimunchatha. Shvetashvatar says, Tameva viditvati mrityumeti nanyah pantha vidyate yanaya. There is no other way. If you want to transcend death and mortality, you have to know the reality. Kathopanishad says, Atha martyo mrito bhavati, atra brahma samashnute. The mortal becomes immortal right here in this life. And Kenopanishad proclaims, Iha ched avedi datha satyamasti, na chediha vedi mahati vinashti. So all these statements from the Upanishads, they emphasize that this immortality, the ultimate goal of realization, can be achieved here in this life itself. Advaita is basically value-oriented in its outlook and maintains that perfection or liberation is not a promise of future life, but a possibility of the present, provided, of course, that one prepares one's life in the right way for its consummation. The path to perfection, according to Advaita philosophy, lies in and through knowledge. Vidyaya mritam ashnute. Although Śaṅkara epitomizes a synthesis of knowledge, devotion, and action, but there is hardly any doubt regarding his belief and his theory that it is only knowledge which can lead to liberation. Vidyaya amritam ashnute, says Ishavasya Upanishad. Ignorance is the root of all our imperfections, and the ills of the world can be destroyed only by knowledge, the direct, final, and immediate realization of the ultimate truth. No gain or achievement is higher than this self-attainment. And Śaṅkara says in his Upadesha Sahasri, Atma labhat paro nanyo labha kaschana vidyate. Although many scholars hold that the predominant idea of Śaṅkara's philosophy is metaphysical, as has been said by Dr. Śrikala ji herself. So it is said that ethics is a subordinate section in the system of Advaita, since the absolute transcends all relations and consequently demolishes the differences between one jiva and another. But on closer analysis, one could understand that in Advaita, the absolute of metaphysics is also the highest value for ethics. There is no contradiction, there is no fragmentation, and there is no dichotomy in this, because there is a close link between the metaphysics and the ethical discipline formulated in Advaita. The relative point of view is inherent, which runs through the entire Advaita philosophy of Śaṅkara. Accordingly, he recognizes a lower empirical level where differences are real at the Vyavaharika level or at the intermediary level. At this level, there is full scope for all the obligations of moral life, the triple debts, the Trividha Rina that a human being has incurred, Deva Rina, Rishi Rina, and Pitri Rina, and the 5 types of yajnas that are ordained to be performed, Pancha Mahayajnas. These are all parts and parcels of the moral life at empirical level. Even at the transcendental level, when the seeker has become a seer, as we know, the seeker and the seer are 2 pillars of Advaita, 2 pillars of any education system. If we have to talk of Guru and Shishya, the seeker and the seer. So at the transcendental level, when the seeker himself has become a seer and he has realized the identity of self with Brahman, there is no denial of ethical perspective. In fact, Paul Deussen has styled the great Upanishadic statement, Tattvamasi, as the supreme moral maxim. According to this view, oneness of the self is the root of metaphysics as well as the root of ethics. Identifying oneself with others and negating one's individual ego is the most essential requirement for any ethical aspect. For Śaṅkara, as long as the illusion of the personality remains, one cannot be truly ethical. Essential difference of individuals is incompatible with active ethics. According to him, for any ethical activity, one requires a sense of oneness or identity. जो अभी भेद और अभेद की बात कर रहे थे कपूर साहब. So a sense of oneness or identity with others is the ground or root of any ethical activity. But though this identity in turn presupposes some kind of difference, identity presupposes some kind of difference. It need not be an absolute and ultimate one. But for ethics, difference is only an occasion. If it were absolute, ethical activities would have become impossible. The only question that we have is, of these 2, that is difference and identity, Bheda and Abheda, which is real in the deeper sense? The difference is not so essential as identity as far as the question of ethics is concerned, and the same stands true for metaphysics as well. That is, whenever ethics needs to be seriously taken, the difference slowly but surely disappears. Only if the difference disappears, ethical activity can begin. Therefore, difference cannot be equally real as identity. It cannot be eternally real as identity. That is why Śaṅkara accepts identity as ultimately real and difference as only empirically real. And we have the mantras of Shvetashvatar Upanishad and the Yajurveda Ishavasya Upanishad, Atmavat Sarva Bhuteshu Sarva Bhutani ch Atmani. Yah Pashyati Sa Pashyati. Among the current challenges that we are facing, one of these is the continuous erosion of ethical values due to rise of materialism and preponderance of economic concerns. No doubt, there is unlimited scientific progress, but the difficulties inherent in the concept of progress serve to show that there is no passage or transition from progress to perfection. We have to transcend. Advaita is a philosophy of transcendence. Not only Advaita, the whole Vedic philosophy for that matter is a philosophy of transcendence. Udvayam tamasas pari swaha pashyanta uttaram devam devatra surya maganma jyotiruttamam. From ut to uttara and from uttara to uttama. The Jyoti also transcends the light, the degree of light, the quantity of light, the quality of light. So we have to have a transition from progress to perfection. The two belong to two different domains altogether. Material progress is related with our day-to-day life of comfort for human beings, but the path to perfection envisages a much higher level of spiritual value which even transcends morality. So it is therefore that the ethics of Advaita is not only concerned about religious values or moral values, but leads us to the highest aim of the spiritual value. It means that ethical or moral values themselves are not the end of human life. They are just the means to the ultimate goal. Sadhana and sadhya. So ethics is the part of sadhana as well as sadhana, because it's a practice which will enable us to acquire the higher form of knowledge that is envisaged for us. To quote from Anatma Shri Vigarhana of Śaṅkara, it is said and supposed to be propounded by Śaṅkara, but it's not very sure. Anatma Shri Vigarhana, he says, Kama tankah khandito va tatah kim, kopaveshah kuntito va tatah kim, lobha shlesho varjito va tatah kim, yena swatma naiva sakshat krito bhut. Even if you have acquired some values and some virtues, you have had victory over kama, kopa and lobha, but there is no use of all these virtues, acquiring these virtues and actualizing these values if you have not realized your own self. Bhupendratvam praptam urvyam tatah kim, devendratvam sambhritam va tatah kim, munditratvam chopalabdham tatah kim, yena swatma naiva sakshat krito bhut. Yasyedam hridaye samyak anatma shri vigarhanam sadodeti saevatma sakshatkarasya bhajanam. So there is no doubt about the fact that anatma and atma, these are two distinct sides of reality, and anatma nitya nitya vastu viveka. I am going to these four sadhana chatushtaya. The path to perfection according to Advaita philosophy is fourfold, and therefore it has the four requirements of ethical discipline, which has been well structured and formulated by Śaṅkara as sadhana chatushtaya. And these four are given in the very first sutra when explaining the term athato brahma jijnasa. While explaining atha, it is said that these four sadhanas have already been acquired. Practice has been made for these. Although there are long debates regarding these four, is it possible for any sadhaka or seeker to practice these four sadhanas? And if somebody has already practiced these four sadhanas, then there is no need of attaining anything, because the ultimate has already been realized. Right from the first one, Nitya Nitya Vastu Viveka. Viveka, discrimination between Nitya and Anitya, Atma and Anatma. This Viveka, this power of discrimination, it begins from day-to-day life, but it is not ordinary power of discrimination. It is Nitya and Anitya. This leads to dispassion or viraga. Iha mutrartha bhoga viraga. Those who have developed this sense of discrimination between Nitya and Anitya, those who can weigh and who can prioritize what is to be attained and what is to be left, they have the viveka, and their viveka leads them to viraga. And the third one is even more difficult to practice, shama damadi sadhana sampat. There are 6 factors: shama, dama, uparati, titiksha, shraddha, and samadhana. Shama is controlling the mind, mano nigraha. Dama, restraining the sense organs, indriya. Indriya nigraha baad mein aur man ka control pehle. The whole of the Gita, Arjuna says, chanchalam hi manah Krishna pramathi balavad dradham. To control one's mind, it is very, very difficult. One day, for 1 hour, you can control, you can restrain your mind. But another hour, another object, another friend, another attraction, and paranchikhane vyatrinat swayambhu tasmat parang pashyati nantaratman. These sense organs, they have their objects, and these days, like we have these malls where everything is displayed. Your senses are being forcefully dragged to these objects. So this statement from the Kathopanishad that the sense organs are made like that. They are motivated to go and look at these things which are being displayed outside. They are always running to the external world. There are only very few chosen ones who turn introvert. Kaschid dhiraha pratyagatmana maiksha. There is very, very rare person like Nachiketa, whom Yama calls dhira. Twadring no bhuyat Nachiketaha prashta. We might have questioners like you, O Nachiketa. You are a true dhira. So, Shama Damadi Sadhana Sampat, these 6 factors are the whole charter of conduct. This is the whole ethical discipline which has been codified by Śaṅkara. And this ultimately leads to the longing for spiritual freedom. Mumukshutva. Here, a question may be asked that all of us want to have moksha, isn't it? At one point of time, at one moment of life, when we lose somebody dear and near one, we all want to be free of this world, free of this life. Mumuksha is there in all of us. It is inherent. But Śaṅkara has also talked of triple mumukshutva, 3 levels of mumukshutva: manda mumukshutva, madhyama mumukshutva, and pravriddha mumukshutva. In his Viveka Chudamani, he has given the explanation. Manda mumukshutva is in all of us. At some time, we all feel that we want to get rid of this. But next moment, everything, this is what we call shmashana vairagya. For a moment, we feel that we have to be liberated. Manda mumukshutva. Madhyama mumukshutva. For a few months, for a few days, or maybe for a year or so. Due to this corona, we all have had a longer period of mumukshutva. But now that the corona is gone, this mumukshutva is also, it's gone. So these 4 sadhanas, these 4 means, they are the ethical steps or disciplines, preparation. And after preparing oneself, after going through these 4, the seeker or the aspirant starts treading on the path of perfection. In this journey, he has to adopt triple steps or techniques for self-realization, which we all know: Shravana, Manana, and Nididhyasana. Shravana is just listening or learning to the subject as principle, then manana is the more important. It is reflecting on what we have heard. And nididhyasana is contemplating or continuously meditating on the subject. Atma vare drashtavya shrotavyo mantavyo nididhyasitavyo maitreyi. From the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, Yajnavalkya giving this discourse to Maitreyi. So the goal of Vedanta, as we know, is self-realization. It is the very purpose of human life. And it is true that the one who has realized the unity of all beings, all differences, including the differences between one jiva and other, they all vanish. This doesn't mean that a realized soul or a jivan mukta shall cease to act because he has achieved what he had to. It is only that such a person is actuated in all his efforts by love and compassion and not by pity and condescension. As Sri Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, there is nothing which I need to acquire, but still I am working and I have to work till such time this body falls. This is the real outcome of ethical practices which helps in establishing universal well-being. Here I would like to quote the explanation of the term Lokaśaṅkara in Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna tells Arjuna, Lokaśaṅkaramevapi sampashyan kartum arhasi. And I went to the commentary of Śaṅkara on this term Lokaśaṅkara, and he says, Lokasya unmarga pravritti nivaranam Lokaśaṅkara. What is Lokaśaṅkara? Lokasya unmarga pravritti nivaranam. That people should not go astray. Just to teach people the right path, you have to act in the way it has been ordained. Mahajano yena gatasa panthaha. So we have also, for the sake of Lokaśaṅkara, we have to act in an ethical manner. As regards the challenge of globalization, these days we all are very happy that Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam has been actualized. In Sanskrit, we only had a proclamation of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, but today it is really actually Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. We are sitting here talking on this laptop and the whole world, maybe people from different countries are listening to it. But is it the real Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam? Is it the globalization that our seers and sages had envisaged? No. This globalization is generally understood in terms of economic, political, and geographical context. But the Advaitic approach represents the classical Indian view of spiritual unity and cosmic harmony, which is far more wider and fundamental. This unitive and integral view is well reflected in the Vedic verses and provides a solid ground for genuine spiritual globalization when it says, Yatra Vishwam Bhavatyeka Nidam and Puman Pumansam Paripatu Vishwatah. By all means, one human being should protect the other. The Advaitic idea of Sarvatma Bhava, not only Ekatma Bhava, Sarvatma Bhava, Sarva Bhutantaratma, is inclusive and holistic in essence. The prerequisite for this worldview are foundational and its prospects are universal, since it aims at the unity of not only nations and states, hearts and minds, men and women, but also of the matter and spirit, Prakriti and Purusha, gross and the subtle, individual and the social. It is not limited to any section of land or life. Rather, it transcends all sorts of bifurcations, fragmentations, divisions, and envisages an underlying spirit of pure and perfect integration amongst all the elements, not only all the human beings, all the elements of the cosmos. Yastu sarvani bhutani. Bhutani is all the beings, living or non-living. yastu sarvani bhutani atmanyeva anupashyati sarvabhuteshu chatmanam tato na vijugupsate. Then he will not hate anyone. Yasmin sarvani bhutani atmaiva bhud vijanatah tatra ko moha kaha shokah ekatvam anupashyatah. When oneness dawns, when this unity of the spirit dawns, then there is no moha and no shoka. We all want to cross suffering, and we cannot get rid of suffering unless we shed this veil of differences, this veil of bheda and anekatva. In short, the Advaitic ideal of ethics or of spiritual value demands that one should treat all living and non-living beings as oneself. It simply impels one to action. Nevertheless, this action cannot be reduced to progress of activities mainly aiming at the material acquisitions. Rather, it aims at the perfection of the individual in all aspects of his personality, cognitive, conative, and the affective. There is no time otherwise. All these four sadhana chatushtaya, we can just explain and see how it represents all the three aspects of a human being, the very idea of sadhana chatushtaya. In other words, Advaita harmonizes morality with spirituality, maintaining that the ultimate end of moral life is self-realization, according to which reality is one and truly blissful. Satchit Ananda, Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. The basic question today, as it was ever present, is the elimination of suffering and attaining to infinite bliss, which is the true self, the nature of the true self. That is why, according to Advaita, moksha is not utpadya, it is not prapya, it is not vikarya. It brahmavit brahmaiva bhavati. He who knows Brahman, he becomes Brahman. This is made possible only by the unremitting pursuit of jnana or enlightenment. As a consequence of this enlightenment, one may work for the good of others out of pious love and spontaneous compassion. This is not the level of ordinary mortality, give and take. This is the super moral stage which is born of a new vision. It belongs to a new dimension of reality and develops into universal sympathy, which is echoed by Śaṅkara himself and which is the strongest foundation for Advaitic view of globalization. And I quote Śaṅkara from his Viveka Chudamani, Shanta Mahanto Nivasanti Santah Vasantaval Lokahitam Charantah Tirnah Swayam Bhima Bhavarnavam Janan Ahetunanya Napitarayantah. Ahetunanya Napitarayantah. This dispels the allegation which is leveled against Indian philosophy in general and Advaita in particular, that this philosophy is individualistic. This is not individualistic. What can be more clear than ahetunanya napi tarayantah? One has attained liberation, jivan mukta, and still he is helping others. We have so many examples of jivan muktas. We have Janaka Raja Videha. We have Śaṅkara himself. We have Sri Krishna. All these jnana muktas, jivan muktas, they were working till the end of their life, not for their own self-realization. They had already had realization, but still they were working to uplift and elevate others, the remaining beings of humanity, not only humanity, but all the elements of the cosmos. This is the integral Vedic view which Śaṅkara had championed, and through his philosophy, which he is projecting and propagating. I think this will be a true tribute to Śaṅkara if we practice, because talking of metaphysical details and technical theories is another thing. To get inspired from his philosophy and to start from where we are. That is the beginning of our true tribute. And with that idea, I think I could have gone into details of these concepts. We have the famous allegory of chariot from the Kathopanishad, where Manas is the rein, Pragraha. Atmanam Rathinam Vidhi, Shariram Ratham Evatu. Manastu Pragraham Vidhi. So Manas is the to be reined. If Manas is reined, it is control. Many of our problems can be removed. So with these words, I pay my tribute to the great soul, the Adi Guru Śaṅkaracharya. I pay my thanks to the Śaṅkaracharya School of International Studies and its director, Professor Shrikala Nayarji. I pay my regards to Professor Kapoor, Professor Soporiji, and all other senior scholars present in the audience. With these words, I stand here for any questions. I don't know whether I can answer the questions, but at least we can share the questions and we can have some discussion. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for beautifully bringing out the ethical perspective of the Advaita philosophy. Now, Professor Kapoor, would you like to comment before we proceed for the discussion? Sir, please unmute yourself. Sir, please unmute.
Yeah. I thank Shashiji for a very lucid and at the same time very deep exposition, because she has moved, she hasn't just talked about certain values which, for example, you have in chapter 16 of, and she has not that after once we all feel we are one, and this, but she's taken it to a higher level. The ethical dimension she has taken to the spiritual level, and I think that's a very very necessary and a very innovative kind of lead she has given. The ethical dimension consists in, and she illustrated it by Shankara's explanation of Lokaśaṅkara. I think it's fairly, I think she answered the question that it is not individualistic. The moment you feel that all of you are one and there is no difference. And in fact, she quoted Vivek Chudamani, if I may not misquote from Vivek Chudamani. I think at one place Shankar says that Brahma Atam Ekatva Bodhena Moksha Siddhayate Na Anyatha. See, once, unless you realize that you are one, because Brahma Atam Ekatva means, Brahm is under in everybody. So unless you feel that you are a part of the whole, unless you realize this, which in Bhagavad Gita then he says that to see yourself in others and to see others in yourself, only then moksha siddhayate na anyatha. So that I think this is the level that Shashiji has taken the discussion of ethics to that level, and I am it was a joy to listen to her after quite some time. I'm very thankful to her. Thank you very much.
Can we now invite Professor Sudhirji to have a quick discussion with Professor Shashi Prabha? Professor Sudhir Supriyaji?
Pardon?
Can we have a discussion with Professor Sudhirji? I think he would like to raise some questions.
Yes. We can have a discussion. No problem.
Please unmute, sir.
It was great listening to both Mr. Kapil Kapoor and Shashi Prabha. I've just put up one small query in the chat box. I was looking at this Advaita philosophy of Śaṅkara and Kashmir Shaivism philosophy of this is monoism. Is it there is differences there, or they are more or less same? Because Parmat Sat also says Param Parastam Gehna Dhanadim. I mean everybody, Śaṅkara exists everybody. So, but is there any basic tenant differences in these two philosophies?
Well, I think, sir, what you have quoted, it is the Indian thought system is fairly integral, and we find some of the seminal concepts are in fact shared. You see, for example, I mentioned that in the kind of flux which is implied and the momentariness. So you have Buddhism, Buddhist thought. So this is very important. It was a very important contribution by Brahma Sutras, the concept of Brahman, which runs as a thread through all creation and binds all creation, and thereby destroys the Cartesian Descartes separateness of reality, which is one of the problems of Western civilization. And this is very important, and it is so logically presented. See? After all, we all have life. Everything has life. Even now, people are saying even iron and metals have life. Chaitanya keh lijiye, consciousness keh lijiye, but there is only the time span differs. Time span. The changes in a human body, the changes in a bird are seen much more quickly than changes in a human being. And the changes in the plants are less. In the metal, they are over long term. So this idea that there is the same informing principle in all creation, and there were other ancillary principles. Now, for example, this world is seen as a parinam of Maya, but it is the vivarta of Brahman. Now, this is a little subtle, but that not so subtle also. But then the quest of the Indian mind, to go on asking and then trying to find an answer. You see, as I said, sir, that Brahma par Brahma dana akala. Why this evolution? And how is it the people attend the question of ek and aneka? If it is all it's all one, then why? How the process? What is the process? Well, there is a power. The power is there, but then how does that power operate? You have Maya, but then you have Kala. But the basic principle, seminal principle of the same informing spirit in all creation, whether Srishti or Jagat or a Jiva, it's a very, and I think this is shared by most Indian thought then, maximum Indian thought. This is not denied by any Indian thought. And Abhinav Gupta जो थे वो तो वेदांतिन भी थे, शैव भी थे, and उनमें उनके thought में सारा combined है. He is a great samanvay, a thinker, a synthesizing thinker, Abhinav Gupta, a very synthesizing thinker.
Shashiji, would you like to
Thank you.
answer this too?
Yeah, I don't have any specific response, but Professor Kapoor has already responded in his own way. I would just like to add that it is said by some scholar, Bahudha pyagamair bhinnaha panthanah siddhi hetavah tvayeva nipatantyogha jannaviyaya varnave. So I think it's Kalidasa who says there are different roads leading to the same goal. Just like all the rivers are moving towards the ocean. Bahudha pyagamair bhinnaha panthanah siddhi hetavah tvayeva nipatantyogha jannaviyaya varnave. So this relationship between the parts and the whole, creation and the creator, this is a very, very integral question. Right from the Rig Veda, we have a question. Iyam visrishtir yata ababhuva so anga veda yadivana veda. He himself who has created this world, even he might not be knowing what is the relation. But then we have other statements Ekam va idam vibabhuva sarvam. Eka has become aneka. Rupam rupam pratirupo babhuva. He has become an exemplar for all these manifestations. So different schools of philosophy in India, somebody has said this is manifestation, somebody says it is a creation, it is a transformation, parinama, or it is a vivarta. So different theories, different explanation, and that is the beauty of Indian philosophical thought, that we are free to interpret it as we like, and to even after interpreting, if we don't like, we can disown it and we can go and follow some other stream of thought. So with these words, I thank Professor Sopuri for his very, very important
I'd like to add something. May I, Shri Kalaji?
Go ahead.
Puri ji ka jo question tha, you see, it raises, I think the implication is whether there is a kind of an influence of one kind of system on the other.
Yeah.
And where did the thought originally belong? My understanding that I have had from my reading and all that and thinking, that in India we don't have this really the concept of originality, that who is the original. And we don't even talk about influence of one on the other. As I said, the Indian, ab dekhiye Abhinav Gupta ke baare mein to it is attested that when he was giving his lectures on Natashastra in what is called Harvan now, Shardavana, and students from Karnataka and students from other places, the great gurus of that area, they would send their brightest student to him. Such was the intellectual give and take and sharing, and so it is a kind of diffusion of an idea, rather than influence of an idea on the other. So it's a diffusion. And
I was
second
only
point,
wondering whether Śaṅkara was somewhere influenced by Abhinav Gupta's philosophy. Was there any connection there?
I think Abhinav Gupta was a little later than Śaṅkara. Abhinav was
Abhinav
later
Gupta was in
than.
8th century or something.
He was in 9th century, 10th
9th century.
century,
Mhm.
and
Shankara was in 8th.
8th century.
So vice versa. I don't know who was.
नहीं वो तो खैर ऐसा है, it doesn't matter because it was not a question of influence, it was a question of sharing.
There is a continuity. There is a
continuity वो shared है. And second point that I want to make is कि देखिए the difference between the Abrahamic God and Brahman is, and ये अंग्रेजी की प्रॉब्लम है, हम लोग थोड़ा अंग्रेजी में केयरफुल नहीं रहते हैं तो प्रॉब्लम हो जाती है. वो गॉड क्रिएटर है और वे पूरा यूनिवर्स क्रिएशन है, पर हमारे यहाँ नहीं है. ये यूनिवर्स कृति नहीं है, ये अभिव्यक्ति है. It is not kriti, and that is a fundamental difference between the concept of Brahman and the concept of God. And I think we should insist on this, because that is what makes us. ये जो मोनिज्म की बात करी है, जो अब्राहमिक मोनिज्म है, that monism becomes a totalitarian. You see, because the God there, he is superimposed, super, and he is distant, and he is outside, and there is a line beyond which you cannot reach him. Transgression है. पर हमारे यहाँ you have to become one with him. So I am also an abhivyakti of Brahman. But I am not a creation of Brahman. So that small, I think, distinction, and the ideas are shared all over. And if you can, I find that in whether I read Jain texts or Buddhist texts or our texts, so many things. And ultimately it's a rich kaleidoscope. वो जो हम बचपन में देखते थे ना, वो शीशे वाले, such a rich kaleidoscope of ideas. Very exciting. So Puriji,
If I want to add one sentence.
They used to tell us that you should pray Lord Shiva by becoming Shiva yourself.
Yes.
देहो
Yes.
देहालया देवी दे अस्ति ईश्वर
देहो देहालय
निर्मलम
प्रोक्तः।
सोहम भावेन पूजित।
Oh,
तो वही है कि शिव बन के ही शिव को पूजा जा सकते, तो वो सेम है। इट्स थैंक यू सो मच आई थिंक एनलाइटनिंग लेक्चर्स।
गुरु नानक के बारे में कहते हैं कि सारे जीवन ब्रह्म विचार करते करते वो ब्रह्म स्वरूप हो गए, है ना। ब्रह्म विचार करते करते ब्रह्म स्वरूप हो गए। आप शशि जी कुछ कह रहे हैं?
जी, जो आपने कहा उसी से मैं बात आगे जोड़ना चाहती हूँ। दैट जो क्रिएशन और क्रिएटर की बात आपने कही कि दिस इज नॉट अ कृति, इट इज द अदर वे। उपनिषद में तो कहा कि क्रिएशन के बाद तत्सृष्ट्वा तदेव अनुप्राविशत, सृष्टि रच के वो परमात्मा खुद भी उसी में अनुप्रविष्ट हो गया।
हाँ।
अलग नहीं है,
अलग
सृष्टि
नहीं।
और सृष्टा का भी एकात्म भाव है।
एंड देन यू नो अनादि अनंत का, अगर आप अनादि अनंत का कॉन्सेप्ट रखेंगे तो फिर आप क्रिएशन का नोशन नहीं ले सकते,
जी,
बिकॉज इट इज ऑलवेज देयर।
yeah, it is
And
always there.
Sapori ji will be happy as a scientist, and you know, so will be Stephen Hawkins, a God particle, you know, which is present in all.
Yeah,
हमें तो प्रभा जी कहती थी, हमारी देवी प्रभा जी जो हमारे साथ हैं,
जी,
कहती थी हम तो क्रिएटर की तरफ देखते हैं, आप साइंटिस्ट क्रिएशन की तरफ देखते हैं,
बिल्कुल
और
ठीक
दोनों
कहा।
में सेम चीज है, इसलिए कोई भेदभाव नहीं है आपस में।
जी, जी,
तो वही है,
दृष्टि का भेद है, बस दृष्टि
हाँ।
का भेद है। और जैसी दृष्टि वैसी सृष्टि, तो दृष्टि सृष्टिवाद भी है हमारे यहाँ।
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Very nice.
Dr. Sangameshwar, would you like to add anything? We have a specialist in Kashmir
Yes, yes.
Shaivism.
Let's hear.
Would you
let's
like
hear.
to draw the distinction between Advaita and Kashmir Shaivism? Yes.
I think there is some difference between the Shankara's Advaita and Kashmir Pratyabhijna philosophy, I think. In its approach, in its aim, and everything, there is some minute differences in the aspect of world view, and in aspect of the adhikari. In adhikari विषये तत्र लोकस्य असत्यता विषये च तत्र भेदः वर्तते। काश्मीर शैव दार्शनिकाः इदं जगत् सत्यम् एव मन्यन्ते, न माया, तत्रापि माया अस्ति, तत्र माया विषयेपि भेदः वर्तते। अद्वैत सिद्धान्तेपि माया इति कल्पना अस्ति, तत्र भेदः वर्तते। माया तु शिवस्य शक्तिरेव माया, तत्र भेदः वर्तते। अद्वैत वेदान्ते तु माया ब्रह्म भिन्ना माया, सद्भिन्ना माया इति, सदसत् विलक्षणा माया इति अस्ति वेदान्ते। तत्र तु शैवदर्शने तु शक्तिः भवति माया, तत्र शिव अभिन्ना माया, शक्तिरेव माया। तत्र एव माया विषये, तत्र लोकस्य सत्यता विषये, लोकं सत्यमेव मनुते, सत्यमेव यद् अस्ति तत्सर्वं, यद् भाति तत्सर्वम् अस्ति। तदेव तत्र एवं वेदान्तः वैदिकमार्गे वर्तते। काश्मीरशैवदर्शनम् आगमिकमार्गे, तन्त्र आगमिकमार्गे वर्तते इति तत्र भेदः, अधिकारिभेदः अपि वर्तते। वैदिकवाङ्मयं न आत्यन्तिकं प्रमाणम्।
I'll call you, sir. I'm in a meeting, on a virtual meeting.
प्रमाणं किन्तु आत्यन्तिकं प्रमाणं आगमिकम् एव, तान्त्रिकम् एव भवति, न वैदिकः ग्रन्थः न प्रमाणं तेषाम्। एवं भेदः वर्तते एव। तथापि सामान्य अंशाः, बहवः सामान्य अंशाः अस्माभिः द्रष्टुं शक्यन्ते।
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
साधुवादाः, पुरुषः साधुवादाः।
Thank you.
Shall we wind up if there is no other question? Are
There
there
is
any?
Anil Tiwari ji, I think, has raised his hand.
Anil ji, would you like to, yeah, Anil ji, boliye. Anil ji, are you there? Nahin, he isn't there.
Yes, ma'am. Good evening.
Aha, please.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I
Yes,
can.
yes.
Please go ahead.
Just one curiosity. In fact, Madam Sasi presents ideas in such a lucid and clear way. It is due to her deep root in Sanskrit. So that is something wonderful to learn. When we try to see a relationship between the ethical ideas and the metaphysics of Advaita tradition, so one obvious question appears that the absolute reality does not, in fact, admit of any characterization, and therefore no possibility of using language. If we consider ethical discourse and see our ordinary life, our worldly existence, here we have two ways of, let us say, educating our young minds and ourselves regarding ethical ideas. One way is to use language, and the other way is to demonstrate by our action. So, vyahar and vyavahar, through both ways, we learn ourselves and also we make others also to learn. Now, the question is that, is it really a tension if we consider the linguistic way of educating about ethical ideas? And given the fact that the metaphysical reality does not admit of the application of language, or we cannot really say anything about the ultimate reality which binds all of us and also in some sense makes the ethical interaction possible, or it at least provides some kind of metaphysical basis for ethical behavior. So how to use language to consider the ethical ideas, learn, discuss, by way of connecting it to something which is beyond any linguistic access. So that is my curiosity, ma'am.
Please answer, Shashiji.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Tiwari ji. Very interesting and very essential question you have raised. And you must be knowing, we all, the students of Vedanta, we know, Asti Bhati Priyam Rupam Namachetyansha Panchakam Adyam Trayam Brahma Rupam Jagad Rupam Tatodvayam. And my title was Śaṅkara Lokaśaṅkara. So when we have to talk of the Loka and Lokasangraha, I quoted Shankara's own words, Lokasya Unmarga Pravritti Nivaranam. At that level, where I am talking of the ethical perspective, that level is not beyond language. The level of anirvachaniya, yato vacho nivartante aprapya manasa saha, that is the level, as you already said, that is the level of metaphysics or the ultimate reality. We cannot characterize it through any language, but still we have to go there via negativa, neti neti. Even in that sense, we have to use language. Although it defies language and it is beyond language, still we have to approach it through some forms of language. And at the level at which I am talking of the ethical discipline, at that level, all these five, Asti, Bhati, Priyam, Nama, Rupa, all these are real at that level. So Nama is also there. So it is true that the ultimate level is beyond language, and language, it is anirvachaniya, as we say. But we have to talk of it. The whole of Kenopanishad begins with the question. We have to go through the sense organs beyond, and then we have to transcend. So the whole philosophy is a philosophy of transcendence. But for transcendence, one has to begin from where he is standing, isn't it? I look at it in that way. Kapoor
Thank you,
साहब,
ma'am.
आप
Thank
कुछ करेंगे?
Thank you, madam, for that. And over to Ramya. If there is no other question, let's wind up.
I'll just add, इन्होंने शशि जी ने बहुत कॉम्प्रिहेंसिवली जवाब दिया है. मेरे को जो जितनी समझ आया है इनका प्रश्न, मेरे को जो शशि जी के लेक्चर से समझ आया है, what I have understood from her is that by following this path of knowledge, you reach a certain level yourself, प्रबुद्ध इतने हो जाते हैं, that you instinctively become ethical. You don't have to do anything else. I mean, once you understand things, विवेक बुद्धि से अगर नित्य नित्य और इसका भेद समझ आ गया, तो instinctively and ethics is not just a question of words, it is also a question of action, conduct. So from जब वो उन्होंने बताया कि जैसे जो वो जाते हैं अच्छे लोग, जिस रास्ते पे अच्छे लोग जाते हैं, दूसरे भी उसी पे जाते हैं, तो वहां कोई भाषा की जरूरत नहीं है, but the process of spiritual elevation of the self, more and more going towards the ultimate, will make you instinctively ethical. Your conduct will be an example of ethics.
Thank you. Over to Ramya.
Thank you very much for this enriching discussion. Now, may I invite Dr. K.M. Sangameshan, Assistant Director, International School of Sri Shankaracharya Studies, to deliver the vote of thanks.
आदरणीयाः पंडितवरेण्याः प्रियमित्राणि सर्वेभ्यो नमः. श्रीमत्या श्रीकलया संस्कृतेन एव आरम्भः कृतः इत्यतः संस्कृतेन एव कार्तज्ञप्रकाशनम् अनुष्ठीयते मया. श्रीशंकराचार्य अन्ताराष्ट्र पठन केन्द्रेण आयोजिते अस्मिन् श्रीशंकर जयन्ती कार्यक्रमे समुचितं मधुरं चिन्तोद्दीपकं च प्रभाषणं विधाय सायंकालम् अमुं धन्यं कृतवत्यः प्रोफेसर शशिप्रभा कुमार महाभागाः. अद्वैत दर्शनस्य धार्मिकं परिप्रेक्ष्यम् इत्यमुं विषयम् अधिकृत्य भाषणं कृतवतीभ्यः शशिप्रभा कुमार महाभागाभ्यः हृदयपूर्णां कृतज्ञतां व्याहरामि. धन्यवादः. अस्य कार्यक्रमस्य अध्यक्षपदम् अलङ्कृत्य औचित्यपूर्णम् आमुखभाषणं विहितवन्तः प्रोफेसर कपिल कपूर महाशयाः चर्चां च नीतवन्तः. अत्र सन्निहितानां सर्वेषां नाम्नि प्रोफेसर कपिल कपूर महाशयेभ्यः अकैतवं धन्यवादं प्रकाशयामि. धन्यवादः. अस्मिन् कार्यक्रमे स्वसान्निध्येन वचसा च भागं बहवः विद्वांसः कार्यक्रमम् अमुं धन्यं कृतवन्तः. सुधीर सपोरी सदृशाः बहवः अत्र सन्ति. तेभ्यः सर्वेभ्यः निर्व्याजां कृतज्ञतां प्रकाशयामि. श्रीशंकराचार्य अन्ताराष्ट्र पठन केन्द्रस्य भावि कार्यक्रमेषु अपि भवतां सर्वेषां सर्वकारित्वं सहकारित्वं भवतु इति प्रार्थयित्वा विरमामि. सर्वेभ्यः धन्यवादः. धन्यवादः.
Thank you all. धन्यवादाः.
नमो
Thank
नमः.
you.
नमः.
सर्वेभ्यो नमो नमः.
नमो नमः.